Good evening, and welcome to a not Shadow Gallery edition of the Shadow Gallery. I'm James Donnelly. I'm not your host because this video that I'm doing right now is in response to Damien, Sleepy Reader 666, to his video, very well thought out, very good video, as to why I'm buying Superman by Orson Scott Card. Now, so this is, I would say, the opposing view, if you will. This is why I'm not buying The Adventures of Superman digital first, and then later in print by Orson Scott Card. Now, yes, this tale has gotten a lot of mileage in pretty much every comic book forum that there is available online. There's a lot of discussion about it in comic book shops. There's a lot of discussion on it on Facebook, on Twitter, so on and so forth. It's all over the place. You cannot avoid it if you're a comic book fan. So essentially, we have Orson Scott Card, a very well-known, immensely published, immensely successful science fiction writer who I am almost wholly unfamiliar with one exception. And this is where a lot of people will say that I lose credibility, but that's okay. I can understand, because I don't have a lot of credibility in the sense of knowing the work of Orson Scott Card. I know Ender's Game. I mean, I know of it. I know of some of his short stories, and so I'm again aware that he is as a writer, he is very respected. As a human being, not so much so. Because of his belonging to the National Organization of Marriage, which is an anti-gay group. He has spoken out saying that they should criminalize homosexuality. This is to me, yes, I'm a liberal. I'm not gay. I'm married to a woman who is also not gay. And there are two reasons that I'm not getting it. Now, the one which is kind of speaks to a lot of people who are saying that they are not getting it, is the fact that, yes, by buying this, you are kind of part and parcel in the supporting of his viewpoints. Now, obviously we know, we're intelligent human beings, okay? We know that he's not going to write a Superman story that's going to make Superman anti-gay for some reason. But again, you have, an understanding of the character is that Superman is alien to this world. So the people that we would expect him to have the biggest connection with would be the outsiders, the people on the quote-unquote fringe of society, even though, homosexuality is much more dominant in world society than it ever has been before. It's made significant, huge strides in just the last 10 years, in just the last 5, really. Because just however many years ago, TV stations boycotting the episode of Roseanne where she had a lesbian kiss with Mariel Hemingway. And that was big news. So obviously DC has injected itself into that vein of Americana. It has said, you know what, we're going to, despite this person's views, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead with publishing a story, but we are also going to kind of fan the flames of this controversy so that more people will either get the digital first when it comes out and see what it's like, which we know obviously won't be, again, Superman being anti-gay, but also it will show kind of the more negative aspects of this movement against DC Comics, which is that of people calling for a boycott of it. People, certain groups, certain people calling for boycotts of DC Comics in general because of this one person. Fuck. So anyway, my main point why I'm not reading it is that I don't like Orson Scott Card's comic book writing. He did the original kind of Ultimate Iron Man series, which was however many years ago. I want to say like 6 or 7 years ago. It was awful. It was really, really terrible. And that's why, more than anything, I'm not going to be purchasing Orson Scott Card's Adventures of Superman. Now, I don't know who's going to be doing the art on this book. That is another part of the problem, because I know that Chris Samnee is attached to this Adventures of Spider-Man, or Adventures of Superman work. Whether or not he's going to be doing Card's arc, that may change my mind somewhat. I will at least want to look at it if it's Chris Samnee doing the art, because I will gladly support anything that Chris Samnee does. DC's move to do this, again, it's both kind of smart and kind of stupid. I know that a lot of people believe that that any publicity is good publicity. I think that would be wrong in this case. I think that it will affect DC's standing, but I think it will not affect it amongst the majority of comic book readers. Again, it will be towards, again, the quote-unquote fringe elements of comic book readers who are in the LGBTQ community. They will, because DC has kind of set this bar for itself as being very gay friendly. I mean, it's the only major publisher with a major comic book that whose lead character is gay. And and there's sort of two of them, because Alan Scott in Earth 2 is not necessarily the lead character, but he's definitely, because it's a team book, but it's, he's an important character. And there are a lot of, and there are, Marvel has its own smaller books that have kind of, these, kind of supporting gay characters, like North Star, like just introduced in Fearless Defenders, the archaeologist. Again, DC also having characters like Scandal Savage, but it's like Gail Simone writing with Ethan Van Sciver. Ethan Van Sciver is notoriously conservative. He is incredibly conservative. He supports just about every conservative movement out there, and that includes the Tea Party. Now, will I not buy some of his work because of his views on that? No. I will buy his work because he happens to be an excellent illustrator. I don't support what he has to say publicly, but I don't care about that because it isn't part of the discussion here. That's really it. The other part, again, and again, course, Gail Simone being notoriously, ferociously liberal, and uh, for instance, my father is extremely conservative. He doesn't watch Fox News all day, but he does watch it. It'll be on in the background or something like that. He'll listen to Rush Limbaugh, but he understands this is all just basically part of the game. He's 74 years old. He's been around a long time. He knows that there's stuff that's just part of the big damn dumb show, as people would call it. And, so he doesn't buy into a lot of that, but he does have very conservative views. So when he and I talk about things politically, but I also listen to what he has to say, because he can usually back up his arguments with very compelling facts. And that's what makes him different than, I think, some other conservatives that I've seen. If you've ever been on the site sodahead.com, you kind of know what I'm talking about. And this unfortunately has grown into a very unhealthy obsession for me, because I actually did post this topic as a topic on Sodahead. But again, just because I wanted to get kind of a feeling of what was going on there, and I feel that it's not necessarily in DC's best interest to do this, but again, I don't think it's going to hurt them in the long run. I think that people will kind of forget about this and move on, because DC is a very strong company. I mean, it's kind of up in the air right now as far as the big two are concerned. I don't know which is stronger, which has the better books kind of en masse. But I mean, certainly one would have to agree that DC does seem to be a much more gay-friendly publisher, and has been for some time. I mean, even going back to a lot of the works with Vertigo. But I mean, most of your gay writers, most of your gay artists, most of your gay comics come from the independent labels, and and that's where most of these, again, I would use the word fringe players, kind of come into the forum, is because they're not really, again, part and parcel. This is a blanket statement. I'm aware that I'm making it, but not really that much into, the ones who are really hardcore about this stuff. They're not going to be buying DC anyway, for the most part. They're not going to be buying Marvel. They're not, I don't even know if they're going to be buying Image. They're going to be sticking with the smaller, more independent labels that publish the kind of stories that they are interested in. Again, blanket statement, but to a very small group, a very small community of the extremists within the comic book community, and there are extremists on both sides, but fortunately they are very small. I would consider Orson Scott Card to be an extremist, but again, that has nothing to do. Okay, I shouldn't say nothing. It has almost nothing to do with why I won't be getting it. The reason I'm not getting it is because I just don't like his work. I don't like his comic book work. And someday I might read an Orson Scott Card book, but again, there is part of that feeling that has not necessarily washed over me, but has definitely injected itself. Whoops. Kept it on pause a little too long. Anyway, but, part of me is saying, well, yes, if I do buy this person's work, I am kind of, there is a small portion of that does go towards what his beliefs are, and I don't necessarily want to be a party to that. But I mean, who knows? I mean, there could be insane bigots running all over the place in the comic book world. There probably are. But because this guy is so well known for that, and if the other people are keeping it hushed up, then I don't know if I am supporting or not supporting. So I guess, again, it really comes down to a matter of understanding. I would never call for a boycott of DC Comics. I would never call necessarily for a boycott of this particular issue, because again, this even if he did decide to do something really bizarre with Superman that did run contrary to all of our understandings of his character, it would still be, he has the right to do that. Of course, DC would shut him down before he ever went in that direction, because, you know, and I think that even Card himself would be smart enough to say, you know, I can't really do that because this is Superman, for Christ's sake. So, I mean, you know, it's out there, we know it, and I think the best thing that we can do right now is just to let people decide however they want to. You know, if someone says, you know what, I'm going to buy it because I'm interested in reading it, leave them alone. Say, good, I hope you enjoy it. If people are saying they're not going to buy it, say, okay, you don't have to. No one's forcing you to. But again, unless Chris Samnee has anything to do with this initial run, I will not be picking it up. And as I said, 95% of it is because I just don't like I just don't like Card's writing on comic books. And I don't think it's going to get any better. So that's my response to this. Damien, if you have decided to post this, I thank you. And I thank you all for watching. Normally, I'm not very political, but I will get sort of political sometimes. So, thank you for watching. And if this is your first time watching me, if you are interested in what I have to say on comics on a weekly basis, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and comment. I'm eager to hear what each and every one of you has to say. So, let me know. Feedback. We're all part of our community. We're all friends here. Let's be friends. So, again, thank you for watching, and have a good night.